welcome to Pure Innovations podcast. My name's Lucy Crank. I'm a mental health community champion. My role is to promote mental health in the Stockport area through clients' journeys and things like that. So yeah, that's me.
Hi, my name's Emily and I'm the digital marketer for Pure Innovations.
Hi, I'm Caitlin and I'm the Disability Awareness Ambassador for Pure Innovations.
I'm Amelia and I'm the Community Engagement Officer for Pure Innovations.
So we're going to be talking about autism in girls. So where should we start with that?
I mean,
So
I've had quite a bit of experience about it. So I was diagnosed at 15, 2 weeks before my GCSE exams, and I'd gone through the entirety of school pretty much with no support, no help. Well, I'd had like bits of help because they knew I was struggling with like in lessons and stuff, but obviously I didn't have a formal diagnosis and I didn't have a piece of paper saying I was autistic. They couldn't do anything really to say to teachers or like staff that I was autistic. So when I got the diagnosis, they'd whiz me through the system, gave me a diagnosis, said, right, you're autistic, blah blah, there's this information, here you go. And then CAMS just kind of dropped it. They didn't really do anything. They said to my mum that, oh, there's support out there that you can, like obviously my mum she didn't really understand autism very well, that she can access, but it was all about, it's not, CAMS don't go to you saying, right, there's this support, we're going to put you in for this. It's kind of like, here's the support, if you want it, you go and get it. It's not a thing that they give to you and you say, oh, you can go and do this. It's kind of like, if you want the support and you want help, you've got to go and do it. When in actual fact, if your own child's just been diagnosed with, it doesn't matter whether it's autism, ADHD, any learning disability or physical disability, they should give you that support after you get a diagnosis, because I don't think any parent would know how to deal with a child who's just been diagnosed with ADHD, because it's something completely new to them. So yeah, that's my experience.
So do you think like a diagnosis is important?
For me, it definitely was, because I didn't have a diagnosis before, I didn't get any support. But then after I got the diagnosis, especially in college, a lot of the support was put in place. And then leading on from that, when I did the internship, if I hadn't had an EHCP or had a diagnosis, I wouldn't have been on the internship. I wouldn't have got to where I am now without that diagnosis. So I wouldn't have been able to get an EHCP because they didn't have the paperwork for it. And I wouldn't have been able to do the internship because you need an EHCP and they wouldn't be able to fund it properly, if that makes
that makes
sense. They wouldn't. So I think an important part of it is getting diagnosed, but it's also frustrating at how hard it is as girls to get diagnosed with autism. I'm not sure what it's like for ADHD, but for autism it's pretty ridiculous, because a lot of girls can go, like I did, they can go like 15 years without being diagnosed.
It's crazy.
Or they can go through their entire lives and get to like 40s, mid-50s, and then turn around and go, oh, I might be autistic, but it's too late. Well, it's never too late to get diagnosed, but I think you've gone through most of your life without a diagnosis, so you just learn to cope, like live with it yourself without the support, which I think in a way, if you can cope with that, you can cope with it. If you can't,
then you need the support.
Then you need something to back yourself up.
You need that diagnosis.
You need that diagnosis to get support, otherwise no one's going to do anything unless you turn around. But it's all...
Yeah, because nobody would be like, oh yeah, I'm autistic, and then
no one can
believe you. You need that diagnosis.
Yeah, you
some
can't.
Women who clearly just don't want to be diagnosed because they don't want the label, they don't want the idea of people knowing or whatnot. So I think it's each to their own, really. But then
Yeah, it depends what sort of diagnosis you're getting as well, I think. I don't know around autism or anything like that, but...
And the support you want as well.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
The support you want. Some support you don't need. Like these, I know a lot of mental health now, they're kind of just free for all and anyone can go in.
Yeah.
And you can speak to anyone, but it depends, like, so you could go to them, but if you wanted more like intense support for specifically autism, you'd probably need to prove that you were actually autistic, because people can... I know a lot of people talk about people with autism masking to be able to fit in, like, especially as girls. A lot of girls can mask.
That's a girl's trait though, isn't
in
it, for autism?
Everyday life. They can mask, they can act like everyone else in the general public. They can go to school and be absolutely fine, come home, break down, whereas it's, I don't know,
It's different in boys.
It's different in lads.
I feel like that's the thing anyway, because girls can mask stuff a lot.
Girls can mask stuff a lot so well.
In my opinion, like,
Yeah.
I'm not a boy.
Yeah.
I think, we do hide a lot more. Even though men's mental health is so, people don't speak and things like that, I think girls can cope a lot easier and not show as many signs.
I think it's both. They're equally
They're both
important.
equal.
They're both equally important.
Absolutely.
They both need the same amount of support, but I think it's recognising that
It's hard.
autism is so different in boys than it is girls.
Yeah.
It presents itself so differently. Like, the traits in lads it's more, like, from what I've seen in autistic boys, especially at school, they're a lot more straightforward. Is that the right word? Like, they're more forward in the sense that you can tell they're autistic. Like, you can go into a room and if someone's autistic, autistic lads in there, you can tell. You can see it from the way they're acting, the way they present themselves. Like, there are quite a few lads when I was in high school anyway, one of the young lads who was autistic, you could tell, he was a few years younger than me, and he'd come up to you and shake your hand. And I don't know whether that's the way he'd been taught to how to approach people, or whether it was just his way of thinking, in a sense that this is how people behave now. When I don't think anyone goes up, unless you're in like a really formal meeting or you meet like someone really important. I don't think anyone goes up. You don't just go straight up to someone and shake their hand.
No.
Or like,
especially now.
especially
In
nowadays,
COVID time.
like COVID time. No, but that was a trait that was very obvious in him, and he was very obsessive. I know a lot of young lads, especially with autism, are obsessed with Pokemon trains, whereas girls' obsessions tend to be more socially acceptable in a sense. I guess, so they can be obsessed with, like, for me, it's TV shows, celebrities, like that sort of thing. So they're more like theatre is another one. They're more socially acceptable, so professionals don't pick up on it at all. Like they'll just think, oh yeah, it's just a cope. Like, it's just the way, it's what you enjoy in a sense.
Yeah, because I like TV.
Well, yeah.
And I like.
Whereas if it was a young
lad,
if it was a 6-year-old kid who came up to you and went, I'm obsessed with trains, you'd go, right, what are your other traits? Do they avoid eye contact? Do they get like socially awkward, or like, it's so much more obvious in lads, but it's the same thing. So a girl could have the worst eye contact ever and have an obsession with TV, and a boy could be obsessed with trains and have the worst eye contact ever, meltdowns, all that. The boy can get diagnosed when he's 6 years old. The girl will go through their whole career, or their whole school career even, and potentially even their proper career.
Without
nothing will happen unless someone picks up on it. So and I've got quite a funny story about being diagnosed, actually. So when I started high school, I don't really care who knows what I was obsessed with when I was in year 7. I was obsessed with Ant and Dec from the ages of about 10 to kind of now. I'm not as obsessed, but I still love them. And they must have picked up on it, because when I was 10, I created a folder about Ant and Dec. So literally, I had a whole folder dedicated to Ant and Dec, so everything to do with them. And I used to carry that around school. So I'd gone through the entirety of school And then when I'd got the diagnosis, a support teacher who'd supported me for quite a while, she'd gone, "Oh, I could tell you were autistic from year 7." So I've gone through the entirety of high school, and it was all because I had that Ant and Dec folder. I took it to school. I take it everywhere with me.
Right.
They knew I was autistic from that.
And they
didn't say anything. They expected me as an 11-year-old kid to figure it out for myself, to go to my GP and go, "I think I'm autistic." As an 11-year-old kid, I don't think any 11-year-old kid is gonna do that.
That's why you have teachers for them to help you and things like that.
So they let me down in being like, "Oh, you're autistic I could tell you were autistic from the ages of 11. I'm like, well, why have you left it till my final year of school when in my exams I did shocking? I could have done so much better in my exams, and it was all because I had diagnosis 2 weeks before my first exam. Right. And it added so much stress and pressure onto me and anxiety, and I just didn't perform as well as I probably could have done."
Wow, that's crazy.
So that's
yeah.
I just think like a lot of teachers, yes, they may know about autism, and yes, they may be great with kids with autism. Like, I've had some teachers that have been amazing with me, but they need, if they think a young girl in their class or in their year or in their school is autistic, don't keep it away from them. Like, either tell their parents, tell them if they're like old enough. Like, I knew of autism when I was younger, but I didn't know what it was until I got a diagnosis. But like, just tell someone, or tell like your like manager or whoever you know that can do something about it to get that diagnosis for them, because it can be so beneficial for the school. Like, I didn't get any support in high school, and it was all because I didn't get that diagnosis. And when I did, it was too late for them to plan anything.
Yeah.
They
2
couldn't.
weeks away from
2 weeks from my exams, they couldn't. It all kind of shifted into college, and then it's only like in the past few years that I've started to. I've managed to get support. Like, the internship, they were really supportive. Second year of college was shocking. They did not care. They just weren't supportive. But first year of college, they were really supportive. And then, like, it's only recently since I've got a diagnosis I've learned coping mechanisms and how I can cope well with everyday life.
Yeah.
Because I've naturally grown to know how to deal with it.
Stuff.
I can naturally just deal with it, because I've just learned, probably from being so young and not being diagnosed, I've just learned to cope with it. Not by myself, but not, like, I've known not to speak to people, because if you don't have a diagnosis, you don't get anywhere. Half the time, you don't get anywhere.
Get anywhere with support.
It's
like, you know, with like my situation and stuff, and I'm happy to like openly say it now. I was gonna say like someone I knew, but I'm happy to say like my situation and stuff. Education for me, absolutely appalling. Teachers are crap. No support, anything, but because I was never diagnosed with anything, so why would, and because I was very isolated from anybody, like why would they even come to me to say, oh, you've got this thing or this thing? It's like not the case. So I never had any support through that, which to be honest I didn't care for anyway, because I had a really good mum who gave me all the support I needed. Still not got a diagnosis, but I don't need one, because I feel like if I got a diagnosis, I wouldn't have achieved half the stuff that I've achieved at all. And obviously for getting diagnosed for some people, best way. Not being diagnosed, best way. Just depends on the person. So
I think also the more you read up on it, especially for me, like the past few months, because I knew we were doing this, and then also the podcast I did on the internship, I've read up a lot more on girls and autism, and the stuff I've read, the more I read about it and the more traits I read about girls and autism, it's like a checklist in a sense. You'll go through and you'll be like, that's me, that's me, that's me, that's me. You seem to just like realise that you have these traits, and sometimes you don't even need diagnosis, because you can just be like,
I mean, that's
you don't need.
I'm more self-aware of my mental illnesses. My, you know, anything that's going on with me. So self-aware now, it's like I don't even care. I mean, being who I am and what I've got doesn't define who I am. Like, I'm just Amelia. Like, if I got diagnosed with the stuff, I don't want to be Amelia with with that, or Amelia with that. Or,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? I
Yeah,
don't want to
yeah.
have that, like,
No.
I'm open about it. Like, if you ask me, I'll tell you, or, you know, if we're talking about something, I'll tell you. But I don't want to have that, like, attachment, because it's not
That
me.
way you-
Like, I'm Amelia, who's fun,
Yeah.
who's weirdly annoying, to say whatever.
Yeah.
But, you know, I don't want to be like, you know, it doesn't define who I am.
Well, that's
Yeah.
the thing. I have the diagnosis, but I don't. Especially now, I don't really care. Like, if I get into a conversation about girls and autism, like today, I could not care less. Like, it doesn't bother me. Like, yes, I've got a diagnosis, but to me, what's more important is young girls who maybe who are in high school, or in, maybe not primary school, but like in high school, who maybe have the similar traits to autism. I don't want them to go through school like I did,
Yeah.
getting diagnosed 2 weeks before their exams, or getting diagnosed so late that it's too late for their school to put any support in. I want them diagnosed as early as lads get diagnosed, because it's not fair for girls to go through all school and struggle when lads can get all the support they want, just because they've got a piece of paper that says autism. Like, that's more important to me, is the fact that I want girls to be diagnosed as more, more frequently, because the lads' ratio to girls is a lot higher than boys. No,
What girls to boys?
girls. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah, okay.
I think it's 3 to 1.
Okay.
So 1 in every 3
Boys.
boys are being diagnosed.
Yeah.
If that's the right way around.
Yeah, and one.
So it's 1 girl for every
Yeah.
3 boys. So 1 girl can get diagnosed at the same time that 3 boys will get diagnosed. So
Crazy.
it's mad how many, and if you think about that in the scale of the whole of the UK, there's 3, however many that lads are getting diagnosed to 1 girl.
Do you think that kind of schools, like teachers, people that are around teenage children, do you think they need more training on kind
I think
of
they need
skills?
more training, but they also need to be more aware of what they're either doing to an autistic young girl, or they need to be trained in how to deal with girls.
Yeah,
And
what you
autism,
said about
because
doing with young girls, some of them can, like, talk to you or treat you and stuff, and it really impacts you. Like, because they don't know.
there was like I mentioned before, there's been a few teachers. There was a few in high school, and then there was one on the internship. They were absolutely amazing with me, and I don't think I'll ever forget them. But then there was also the teachers, especially in high school, that didn't get it. They would send me out every lesson. I'd go in, sit down, I'd get sent out. It's not.
They didn't know how.
They didn't understand.
Yeah.
It's not that they didn't. I don't know whether it's just because they were just a bit of an idiot.
Probably.
hate to say that, but I don't know whether it's just because they thought I was attention seeking, or they thought, I don't know what they thought, but they just didn't know how to cope with me, even if I wasn't doing anything wrong. So they seemed to think if I went in their lessons, I would instantly cause trouble. When in actual fact, I was not causing trouble. All I was doing was being myself, and sometimes in some of the lessons it would get so overwhelming that I would kick off. But them teachers would see that as being aggressive, or being naughty, or not following rules, or whatever it is, when in actual fact, no, things have just got so overwhelmed for me in my head that I cannot cope, and I need to be sent out of that to be able to calm down, and then I'll go back in and I'll be fine again. It's more about the teachers having training and understanding of students, and yes, you can not like people, or you can not like certain students, but you have to. You need to treat them.
You've got a responsibility.
Respect, and you've got responsibilities.
Yeah, as a teacher, to even if you're not agreeing with a pupil, I don't understand how any teacher could ever dislike a student, or.
Exactly.
But I know there is times when that's happened.
Yeah.
It's happened to me. You know, in year 5, as I was saying before, I had dyslexia. I wasn't diagnosed at that point. My handwriting was atrocious. You couldn't even read it. Couldn't understand anything that I'd written. And we turned up at parents' evening, and he says, well, Lucy's never going to be a brain surgeon, is she? So you know, for somebody to say that to a child that's in year 5, you know, I don't want to be a brain surgeon, but it's not the point. It's, you know, it's putting a label on that child that to me, it's making me sound like I'm dumb, I'm stupid.
It's damaging
I never
to
make anything.
mental health as well.
Yeah.
Because, like, a lot of the stuff that, like, the teacher who I didn't get on with, he didn't particularly get on with me, stuff that the way he would act around me and the way he would treat me in school, it stuck with me. And it's not going to go away. I don't think it'll ever, like, leave me. It may go to the back of my mind because I'll be doing other things, but he's always in my mind. And people will say, like, in school, people will be like, oh, when you leave school, you won't remember them. Yeah, I do, because the way he treated me, I'm not going to forget.
Yeah.
It's going to stick with me. It's giving, like, I don't say it's giving PTSD, but it's kind of that similar sort of thing.
It's a traumatic situation.
Yeah. So
it's caused that for you. Same with me, like that. I'll never forget what that teacher said.
Yeah.
Like, I'll never forget that. It's just always be there. But you will come out stronger.
Yeah.
And
100%.
you know you're better than any of them people that would ever, you know, look down or say anything to you. You just become a stronger person from it.
From like 16 to now. I mean, it's only been 2 and a bit years, but like I see from that 16-year-old girl who had just left school, I was absolutely terrified of everyone. Wouldn't speak to anyone I don't know. Like, I wouldn't even say my name to someone I didn't know. Who wasn't really that excited to go to college. I was more terrified that I wouldn't make friends and I'd hate it. And I didn't want anything to change. To now,
doing a podcast.
it's to me, I mean, I don't like compliments and I don't like that sort of stuff, but the amount I've grown and changed, I can definitely
say it.
I can see it in myself, and as weird as that sounds weird, but I can see the difference in, like, even looking back for old photos, I can see, like, from being 16 to now, I'm like, my confidence has grown, like, just myself in general has grown. Like, I know how to cope with things. Like, at 16, I didn't even know what the feeling, how can I word this? When I felt overwhelmed, I didn't know I was feeling overwhelmed at 16. Right. So if I was in school and I feel overwhelmed, I'd kick off. But in my head, I wouldn't know why I was kicking off. Yeah. But it was because I'd feel so overwhelmed that I'd kick off. But now, if I feel overwhelmed, I know how to cope with that and I can deal with it. And I know who I can go and speak to. I know who can ring. I can pick up the phone and ring whoever I need to. Yeah. Like, I don't let it get to that point where I'm kicking off and going around, like, hitting walls and all that sort of stuff.
You've got coping mechanisms.
I've got a lot of coping mechanisms now, and it makes life a lot easier. Yeah. Them times, maybe not so much when you're overwhelmed, but when mental health is bad as well. Like, if it gets, like, my anxiety gets bad or anything like that, then I know what coping strategies are. Yeah. To be able to deal with it.
You've done amazing. I think you have. From meeting you a few months ago, you know, your confidence has shot up from even the first time I met you, so you are doing amazing.
Shit,
you don't like compliments.
Why?
But no, it's like what you said, like, with me, with that teacher, I think that was a reason for me going to uni, if I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I wanted to prove to everyone that thought I couldn't do anything with my life that, look, I can go to uni, I've got a degree, you know, I've got this amazing job now where I help people who struggled like I did, you know, with mental health and things like that. So I think when something like that happens, it is a good thing as well, because not a good thing, but it's
kind of a
blessing in disguise. Yeah. That's what I always say. It was a blessing in disguise that I struggled in school, because I won't be where I am now. Yeah. So
yeah, definitely. Go on, Kaylin, you've not said anything.
Going back to, like, mental health and just in general, I think the problem is that it's less. Obviously, there is a school issue and there is a support issue, but I think it goes further than that. I think the problem is that society in general socialises women into such structured gendered roles. Like, with girls in autism, they, you know, tend to be less in most cases they're a bit more passive, a bit more withdrawn rather than aggressive, or they learn to adapt, I guess, in a way to social situations, and they sort of manage social demands, whereas boys, obviously, it's more obvious that they struggle with social communication, and especially in their early childhood. But I think just in general, the problem is, the diagnostic criteria, even like despite all these studies showing that clearly girls do have autism and it's not just, a boys issue, that it still doesn't discriminate between boys and girls. It's still like one structured.
It's the same. It's the same for both, and it shouldn't be, because, like we said before, it's so different to autism in boys is so different to autism in girls.
Yeah.
And the criteria, when a boy gets diagnosed, there should be a criteria for lads and a criteria for girls. So they follow whoever's diagnosing them, the NHS, whoever they follow a criteria that is specifically for lads that are being diagnosed for autism, and then when it's a girl coming in to be diagnosed for autism, they get diagnosed by that criteria, and then you've got that diagnosis and it's an equal thing, like it's an equal, like then you've both got support, like boys and girls have both got support.
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. The reason we did this podcast is to help and inspire young people in a similar situation. Keep an eye out for the next podcast episode that will be around mental health. See you soon.